This affirmation topic on contentment speaks about learning to carry God's peace within us. And I thought to begin the talk today with a song of Swamiji's, which is Peace. And I just would invite you to feel that peace. The concept of carrying, holding God's peace in our hearts through life's mightiest storms is something that is more easily practiced when there isn't a mighty storm, or perhaps before there is a mighty storm. We might think of this today with the rain coming tomorrow again or later today. Anyway, feel this vibration. Peace gave us the mountains, peace gave us the sky. Nightly when starlight enfolds us, peace is its lullaby. The morning, peace gave us the sun, bird songs that call us to welcome, gay and fresh labors begun. The seasons, peace gave us the rain, cool clouds that gather to bless us, mist hands that soothe away pain. Our heart's love, peace gave us our smiles, praise of God's presence within us, light that all strife reconciles. Some of you may know that Nirmal and I were in India recently. We just got back this past Friday. This was a kind of a condensed trip, you might say. I'm starting to believe that any trip to India is a condensed trip, even if it lasts for 9 years, as a previous one of ours did. It was interesting, this morning during the fire ceremony, I was thinking, if you could digitally represent, here we go again. Is it mine or is it, why don't we, well, let's try it for, okay, well, we have a backup plan. It's one of the things we learned in India and other places. It's always good to have a backup plan. If you could digitally represent that fire think, you have this movement, this sort of evolving movement. That's what being in India is like. It's like there is so much information that comes into any given moment. If you could slice that fire in a million little tiny sections, one instant later they would all have moved, they would all have changed. And that's what India is like as well. We're going to have a satsang afterwards, and my brief commercial announcement is not only come to the satsang, but there's going to be a special little miniature India bazaar as well for treasures from Shopper Mata here, who has, and I don't say that entirely humorously. She is really good. She really knows what she's doing out there. Anyway, there is so much that India can give and share with the world. And I think I could appreciate that on this trip, perhaps at a different level. Maybe it's not everyone's destiny to go and visit India, but in a sense we're visiting India just by coming into this temple, because the tradition that we represent and the path that we follow originated in India, and there is this deep blessing in it. And the topic today, can man see God, or can God be seen, takes us to the place where we realize we have to see with something beyond human eyes. We had a little satsang during this trip, a little gathering of friends, and they wanted us to sing endlessly. I mean, it was like they just kept rattling off, no, chant this, sing that, chant that. We just kept singing and singing and singing. But there was a little pause in there at one point, and I don't remember what it was that brought out Jazz Beer's little commentary, but it was the sweetest thing. It brought tears to my eyes. This is just one of these little spontaneous thoughts that came up. This friend of ours there in India she told a little story, and I don't, maybe telling the story will remind me why she told the story, but she's a Sikh. Her husband is Brigadier Singh. He also wears a turban, Sikh. And the story was of one of their founding gurus. All right, let's turn off the ear one and let's use this one. We can do it. Thank you. We're going to have to figure out why this thing keeps doing that. That guru had disciples who were Hindu and Muslim both. And the Hindus and the Muslims didn't always get along with each other. And the Muslims felt sort of oppressed somehow. And they were asking this guru, come and pray with us. Come to our mosque, pray with us. Show us that you too are a Muslim. They were sort of egging him on, needling him. And so he said, okay, I'll come. So he went, and he went into the mosque. And the prayer began, and a few moments later, he came back outside. And they came out, one or two of the ones who had invited him and been bugging him came out also and said, well, see, I knew you wouldn't stay. You're not truly Muslim. You didn't stay with us in the prayer. And he said, you were thinking about that calf that hasn't been born to your cow. And this one over here was upset with his wife. I came outside to where the prayer is continuous. The sky is chanting to God. The wind is singing. The birds are singing. The flowers are wafting their fragrance to the infinite. All of nature is chanting God's joy and God's love constantly. But in the temple, I wasn't finding it. And somehow, and this just welled out of her. Again, I don't remember exactly why in the conversation it came up, but that sense of God's love is the only thing that matters in this world. That is how we see God. We see God in the heart. We see God by opening this one eye. These two eyes are going to see the dream. They're going to see lots of division and lots of opposites constantly alternating back and forth, lots of movement. We open this eye, we open the heart, we see God's love and God's light in the most amazing ways. Without that, we are stuck in an uncomfortable state where we are constantly sloshed about by the waves of circumstance. This affirmation that we practice today, talking about holding on to contentment, it's an interesting one, especially coming from India, because outwardly we see lots of things that through Western eyes we say, oh, but we should fix that. That's not good, or that's not nice. We should fix that. We should repair that or somehow make that system better. Okay, that's fine. Contentment does not mean ignoring whatever it is that needs to be changed. It means accepting the reality for what it is now and being comfortable that, okay, this is what it is now. And so in the case of our own lives, yeah, if something needs to be changed, if we need to grow beyond some bad habit, for example, and I suppose that applies to just about everyone here in the room, yeah, okay, we accept, it's there. It's a reality. It is a present fact. It is not the ultimate truth of my nature, but it is a fact right now, and I have to accept that it's a fact in order to change that fact. So contentment doesn't mean ignoring or sort of sitting back in the lazy boy chair and moving the gear shift that kicks our feet up in the air and saying, okay, well, world, whatever you are, forget it. I'm just going to not even think about it. It means I accept the reality and I accept the responsibility for changing what I can change in my own life, being the best example that I can be. And so going to India, we would see different things that were uncomfortable to see. India represents wonderful opportunity and wonderful challenge, all at the same time. The opportunity is profound because it is real and it is spiritual. And it's not that we don't have spiritual opportunity here in the West, of course we do. But every culture has a certain specialty. Every culture has, and this was something that I tuned into on the trip, every culture has a certain appreciation. And in Italy, they appreciate pasta. Other places, and maybe it's miso in Japan. I mean, I'm trivializing a little bit here, obviously. But in India, there is an appreciation for spirit. There is an appreciation for the diversity of manifestation of that spirit. And it is amazing, the diversity of the manifestations that we see. We were reading a book. We had a couple of very long plane rides. We had a whole lot of plane rides. 2 of them were 14 hours. Which is a long time to sit on an airplane. It's really good to have a good book in a situation like that. The movies really won't get it done, I'm sorry to say, even if they're good ones. One of the books that we were reading is called Graceful Exits, and it's little vignettes, little stories of great saints and masters leaving the body. And what did they say or what did they do as they were getting ready to say goodbye to this world, to this dream and this drama. And so I'm going to reiterate one of them because I think it applies in one way or another to all of us, and I hope I haven't completely stolen your opportunity in other times to tell this story, but I know. Well, you let me talk today first, so that's what you get. That's what you get for doing that. Anyway, this story is of a Zen monk in Japan, and his monastery was around him, and he felt that it was time for him to leave the body. So he called his monks and he said, "I'm going, and it will be in this next meditation. I will leave my body." Well, they sort of accepted it, not happily, but what else were they going to do? I mean, the master said he was going to leave, he's going to leave. So he sat down to meditate and he left his body. His heart stopped, gone, done, over. And this huge wail and cry went up, and they were so sad and they were so bereft. And this went on for a while. He opened his eyes and he said, "Now listen, you need to behave like monks. I mean, remember your training, for heaven's sakes." So he assigned them. He said, "We're going to do something together now. We are going to have a stupidity purifying meal together. We are going to get rid of stupidity, at least in this context." So they had this meal together, and then he said, "Okay, now I am going to go into my room and I'm going to leave the body, and I would kindly request you to eliminate all the commotion, because when someone's trying to leave the body, all that commotion is not helpful to them. So let it go." And so he went into his room and he left the body, and that was the end of that. And then the hue and cry wasn't there the second time. But all of us, in one way or another, for one reason or another, would do well occasionally to have a stupidity purifying meal. Because when we look at the world through these eyes and we get caught in the drama, sooner or later, we're going to act in a way that is less than edifying, less than elevated, because that's the nature of the drama. There's always more to learn. And so we get caught up with whatever is going on around us. And it may be that everybody's wailing and moaning and groaning and there's all sorts of commotion happening. We have to have a strong enough internal sense of what is real and what is right that we can hold on to that when all the rest of the commotion is happening around us. So like the affirmation said, through life's mightiest storms, I am contented, not just because I say I'm contented, but because I hold in my heart God's peace. We have to hold that peace on a profound level. And yesterday morning, I want to thank those of you who came to the Kriyaban meditation. We had a 3-hour meditation here in the temple yesterday. And we'll do this roughly once a month. And there was a level of peace, particularly in the second section of meditation. I'm sure it was all the way through to one degree or another, but meditation deepens the longer we practice sincerely. And yes, the body may get uncomfortable, and yes, the mind may become restless and so on. I mean, meditation is a muscle that has to be conditioned, has to be strengthened. It doesn't, just because we sit in the chair for 3 hours doesn't really mean we're meditating for 3 hours. But there is a group magnetism and a group power that comes, and it is beyond words. And I invite all of us, tune into these opportunities as and when we can, because the blessing in it is really, really deep. Every Sunday morning we have a purification and we meditate for roughly a half an hour. That too can be very, very deep. Take those chances. We have morning sadhanas obviously in the chapel in the community every week from 6 till 8. If you can come. But wherever you find yourself, wherever we walk in life, some of us live far away, it's not convenient. Others live close, but it doesn't work. That schedule doesn't work for one reason or another. Take whatever chances you have in life, because it's so easy for life to just sail by. Friends of ours in India some of them are getting on in years, and we often wonder, is this going to be the last time that we will see this one or the other one or the other one? We've sometimes told the story of one friend of ours there who we had just greeted him the week before. We were living in Pune. He lived up in the Delhi area. And he came to some program that we had, and Within a few days, he was gone. He was in his 80s, so it wasn't as if he was real young. But he left his body in a very conscious way. He knew that it was his time. He called his children to him, and he said, I'm about to go now, and I will explain to you what's happening. And he could feel the energy leaving his body. And he's, sort of explained that, as starting with his toes and his legs, and then his hands, and then he said, now after my chest, after it leaves my chest, it's going to go up past my throat, and then I won't be able to talk with you anymore. But then it's, the energy is going to pass out through the point between the eyebrows, and that's what happened to him. And this is something that, if you can think of someone who's left the body like that raise your hand. Good for you guys. I'm very happy to see that there were even that many. Yeah, well, Swami, okay, but I mean, Master, others. It's possible. And it's not only possible, it ought to be the norm that we can know and that we can live in such a conscious way that we live in the light of God. We live in the presence of God. And obviously it's around us all the time. We need to learn to look for it and think of seeing God. Think of what do we appreciate in this culture. This culture is not just this country that we live in, it's also the culture of Ananda. I remember friends of ours coming from India, and we were asking them how did they enjoy being in America. And of course, most of the time that they were in America, they were in one place of Ananda or another. They visited the various colonies and Ananda village as well, and they said, oh, we're not in America, we're in Ananda. As far as they were concerned, America was this other whole reality, but they were in the culture of Ananda. And the culture depends on what we focus on. What do we appreciate? What do we attract? What do we sort of encourage in life? That's what we see. And on this trip, and you'll hear much more about it in the satsang afterwards, we're going to show some slides. We visited a school for girls who either can't see or can't hear or can't speak, or in some cases all three. And they have a profound happiness. That may sound completely contradictory because their circumstances are not typical. They don't have the typical family around them. They don't have the typical opportunities that a family might like to have, but they have each other and their kids, and they have a spontaneous joy of kids together. You think of, I don't know if you can remember the first time you ever had a slumber party, which is inappropriately named, frankly, because usually there's very little slumber that happens at a slumber party. But if you think back to the first time that ever happened, it's like, oh, we don't have to go to bed at the typical hour. We're with our friends, and we can, talk under the covers, or we can do whatever till late in the night. That, in a sense, is what they have all the time. They have each other, and you feel that. You feel that sense of material things are not a limitation. And yes, they need certain things, and part of our going there was to try to help them in certain ways, but they also could help us because they could demonstrate the sense that life is not about things. Life is not about how many toys we have, or how big is our house, or how nice is our car, or how beautiful are our clothes, or our skin, or our hair, or shoes, or whatever it might be. All the things that we can get lost in. No, it's about how happy is my heart, and what can I share with others, whether I have anything to share at all. Every one of us owns a smile, and our smile is unique. No one else has your smile. No one else can make you smile if you are determined not to smile. You know, there's some people I've noticed who, all other things being equal, their face resolves into a smile. You know, unless there's something unusual going on, there's a gentle upward moving energy. But nobody can make us do that. But if we do it of our own volition, Master gave a talk that he titled, "Be a Smile Millionaire." Be a smile millionaire. Every one of us, you know, it's not given to everyone in this world to be a millionaire. And he was speaking back in his era when a millionaire was worth a little more than it is now. Okay, even now it's still not given to everyone to be a millionaire in terms of dollars or euros or whatever it may be. But it is given to us that if we want to smile, we can smile, and we can have 1,000,000 smiles. And that is one of the ways that we see God in this world. And it does not mean that it's all fun and giggles in the world. There are jobs to do, there are hard choices to make, there are challenges to face, absolutely. But we can always smile in our hearts, knowing that God is the one in charge of all this drama, and that our part in it is to do whatever it is that we can do. One of the things that I deeply appreciate about India is that nearly everyone is under assignment in India. Assignment from who, you might ask? Well, a child is under assignment from the parents or the teacher in the school. And a youth is similarly, the parents still hold some sway. A young person is growing up, they have the society sort of tugging at them, giving certain messages, or the boss at work, etc. On and on and on. And it's usually not until one gets to be a fairly, one's children are settled in life, then one is sort of, okay, you now have the freedom. You have earned the right to choose what you want to do with your life at that point. And no one can tell you otherwise. That kind of freedom, or that kind of sense of, I have a job to do. It's not just all games. There's a duty that I have to do, and I feel happy when I am engaged in my duty. It's a beautiful sense. And again, there's a lot to learn and a lot of blessing to receive from that example. And we have many things together in the West, but on a spiritual level, there's a lot to learn. Let us learn to see God in every situation. Learn to see God in the rain that's going to fall, whether today, tomorrow, this week, in the sun that will follow that. Let us learn to see God in every moment of our lives, whether it seems disastrous or whether it seems like the greatest thing that ever happened. Find that reality deep, deep within, because it is possible, and we can all do that together. We'll take an offering.